What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sports Jedi Network. We're going to recap the wrestling week here. We have a lot to talk about. Hope everyone's doing well. But first, let me say hello to everyone that's watching us on all different platforms and let you know about our sponsor. We are sponsored by Dude Wipes. Dude Wipes and the Sports Jedi Network, wiping out the competition. Thank you guys for a wonderful week of professional wrestling. Mills, BX Sports Jedi Kev, the co-founder, the founder of the Sports Jedi Network. Chris is off tonight, but it's going to be me, so hopefully we can get going. Let's talk about what do you guys want to talk about. It's been a lot to talk about, from invasion angles to a lot of PLEs, the good, the bad, and ugly of professional wrestling of the whole entire week, especially Friday Night SmackDown. We'll get all into that. We'll talk about that. Let's start with the first and foremost, Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw thought was a really strong Monday Night Raw. I want to go over to some part. We saw champion versus champion, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, face-to-face, setting up their big matchup for Crown Jewel at Perth. Like the fact that the Braun Breaker, Brunson Reed were both at ringside. Heyman, Cody called them a bunch of goons. They didn't attack. They didn't do the copy and paste stuff in the beginning where Cody outnumbered, who's going to come in, can they coexist. They didn't do that. They left that off there for later on for Monday Night Raw. Look, everything is setting up for Perth, Australia, especially as the night progressed. I want to go over another match. I want to talk about, we'll put a pin on that there with the LA Knight situation with the Usos, Jamie and Jay. I want to talk about something that isn't going to get really recognized all week, and it's the 6-man tag with the New Day, Grayson Waller, Penta, and the War Raiders. Why I brought that up, because everyone seems to say that it doesn't resonate, but it was a fun 6-man tag match, in my opinion. I want to see more and more Grayson Waller get more television time, more wrestling, more microphone time. I've been a big advocate of Grayson Waller, watching him at the 2.0, seeing how he has risen and gotten called up to the main roster, and he is so far stuck in neutral. Hopefully this opportunity that he gets with the New Day, regardless if it connects to you or not, I just need Grayson Waller to get the microphone. Look, the Theory Waller experiment didn't work. I was excited when they won one half of the tag team champions at WrestleMania in the ladder match. I said, let's see where that goes. Didn't resonate for Waller or Theory. Theory is lost in space. We don't know if he's injured, off of television, out of sight, out of mind, repackaging, whatever the case is. But for Grayson Waller, he has an opportunity to be under now a pedigree of championship, of people who kept reinventing themselves, getting over with the crowd, working as uber baby faces or heel. Listen, Grayson Waller, I hope they never put him a baby face. He is a natural heel. This guy is sharp with the tongue. He is quick. He doesn't need any written promos written out for that man. The man picks up and he attacks. He's a cerebral thinker, zinger. Now, maybe sometimes for certain people, maybe it is state of age where everyone is so insensitive. You say a certain phrase or word and everyone gets their they get their panties in a bunch, and maybe they're afraid of letting Grayson Waller go out there and just shoot from the microphone because of his lack of trust that the company has. There's no body of work like a CM Punk, like a Seth Rollins. Those guys are main men, and they trust them that they'll have the better interests of the business, where maybe they don't trust Grayson Waller. I think Grayson Waller should get that opportunity. I think Grayson Waller should. You might not like him, but listen, wrestling isn't only catered for just your liking. There's other people that do. Like this gentleman here is a fan of Grayson Waller. I hope they at least give him the opportunity. I just wanted to give that honorable mention before we get back to the Braun Breaker and the Usos whole saga. We figured out next week they're going to have another match after that singles matchup, Jay, LA Knight. Now we're going to get, of course, Jimmy Uso coming back to help him with the chair. My opinion, this Monday night in Greensville, I think LA Knight, I've been saying everyone thinks Jay is going to be the heel. I think the money is in LA Knight turning heel finally, setting up for a 6-man tag at Perth. This is my opinion. It's going to be the original OG bloodline, Roman Reigns, because he is on the poster at Perth, Australia. Oh, this is not the first time they have placed wrestlers on a poster for promotion, and then their card subject to change. It wouldn't be bad if we see Roman Reigns, Jimmy and Jey Uso taking on LA Knight, teaming up with Brunson, Reed, and Braun Breaker. I mean, it's just kind of makes so much sense. You're off and running. You're building for the War Games. Also following in another couple of weeks after Australia Perth, you got to start now building up and setting up the War Games situation. Who's on group? We already know Paul Heyman has confessed he is working with Brock Lesnar. You saw that on WrestlePalooza. He did his entrance on Friday Night SmackDown. He confronted by Cody Rhodes. He was asked if he's his advocate. There's no secret. He's working with Brock Lesnar. It works, especially for the War Games for Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman, is nothing wrong dipping in a little bit of managing a little bit of different guys in different group. Look, you have it with Don Callis. I've been a big advocate. I've said this time and time again. When it comes to professional wrestling, we need more managers. We need guys to help tell a story with their pawns, with their chess pieces against the baby faces, setting up obstacles, dilemmas, situations where you now want to get invested emotionally with that family group. Sometimes it's not done right. Sometimes it's done excellent. I don't know if the modern day wrestling fan or the IWC has the patience to let things strategize and play out. And it's starting to show with the booking when it comes to Triple H. And I know it's a little bit all over the place. Booking with Tony Khan, booking at times even with Total Nonstop, with TNA, they change things. It makes me worry. Are we in the business of telling stories anymore? Is professional wrestling down here in 2025 and beyond in the business of telling stories? I hope so, because at the end of the day, this is episodic telenovela, escape from our everyday lives into the world of professional wrestling. And yes, we know that these men and women, these individuals that go out there to perform the art, have their lives outside of the arena, outside of the ring, outside of the square circle, behind the curtains, and those lines gets blurred a little bit. But I don't know if there's enough discernment in our wrestling knowledge or wrestling fandom to differentiate. Okay, wait a minute. This is so and so tonight here. We're no longer in the arena or venue, or we see them in Publix or in an airport. They're so and so now. We have to learn how to give them that line of respect. Where is that line? Where is that line, or where is that blur line as a fan to performer at? I know we're talking a review, but I just wanted to bring that up because we see all these horror stories where stalkers show up at the PC, gets arrested. In the case of Liv Morgan, the uber aggressiveness at airports to signing Funkos. Sometimes I understand. Sometimes the performers should understand, especially in the arena. We get a little, as a fan, I'm going from a fan, we get a little bit in the emotional fanboy starstruck because we get to see our favorite up close and personal, and you want to say, hey man, we really appreciate you, man. Hey man, you do some great stuff, and if you're there heel, man, you just got us so angry what you did to so and so. Sometimes some people tend to let that overtake their emotions, and we got to learn how to have balance with that. Where is that? I don't know. Every individual is different, and I just wanted to bring that up because we see all different things that have happened with fans and professional wrestlers. I had a privilege to go on Tuesday night to the Performance Center. Got to see all the TNA wrestlers say hello when there was in the commercial break, or they were way. That's when hey, how you doing to so and so, Mr. Mack? I saw Steve Mack. Hey Mac, hey Steve, how are you? He nodded, left it alone. Got to see now. There's always a time and place to greet wrestlers at the time and place, and I guess hopefully we have enough discernment here in 2025 to 2026 to differentiate that. But I digress. Let's stay with the Monday Night Raw. I think for Perth, Australia, I wouldn't mind seeing the Usos and Roman Reigns, your tribal chief, teaming up in a 6-man against those. Let's see how that works out going forward. One thing we'd find out, we finally saw Bailey. We saw the multi-personality, the split personality Bailey. I like it. I love what Bailey's doing here because you don't know which Bailey you're getting. You don't know if you're getting that heel Bailey or that split personality Bailey, the hugger. But here's the thing. She's freaking entertaining in the ring. Her match, very entertaining. Her backstage or Lava Valkyria. You know, it's been a while. We had some good backstage when it comes to Monday Night Raw to get us into to set up the whole course of the program of the 2 hours and 45-minute Netflix show. I loved how that pace went. I enjoyed also seeing backstage with the Rhea Ripley, Asuka, Stephanie Vicaire, even Nikki Bella. I thought they were going to go that route. I was like, are they going to bring Nikki Bella to Australia? It's no problem with that. But I thought I thought there was bigger fish to fry with finally getting the Asuka heel turn, in which we got at the end of the night. And what was a good thing about Monday Night Raw, we did not finish with the same main event. We changed it up a little bit. They switched it up a little bit. They gave you the ladies to close out, and they deliver. Also, they deliver with storylines that's going to leak in now for the rest of the week for Perth, Australia, for this Monday night coming up. With Asuka, Io Sky totally being heartbroken with a mentor, a family mentor in Asuka just betraying her or just hitting her with the back fist, as well as Kairi Sane going along with the insane elbow. And you see the video footage on the social media from Io Sky, heartbroken, crying. The embrace afterwards with Rhea Ripley, who turned into a Smurf. You know, talk about the mist that, you know, just left a mark. It turned the whole entire Monday Night Raw blue. And the whole mood, literally. It was blue, green, whatever the color was. It just looked phenomenal. The spray all over Rhea Ripley from head to toe. It's like, you want to be tattooed? I'm going to tattoo you with some mist. Asuka did a great job there to close out Monday Night Raw, setting up what's going to be a great build for Perth, Australia, where she's going to team up with Io Sky, and, of course, taking on the Kabuki Warriors. Great job there to get us invested in there. Kabuki Warriors got a new lease of attitude. I just want to see. Kairi Sane is still conflicted. There's got to be that moment where Kairi Sane is either going to be fully invested with Asuka's movement, or there's going to be that doubt. I think the end game here is going to be Kairi Sane versus Asuka. You could see it. Hopefully they don't rush it. Hopefully they pull the trigger at the right time. They don't need to rush things. They could slowly build it. And we'd like to see the Kabuki Warriors be a group again, being heelers with the tag team division, where the tag team division, everyone complains how it's not resonating. Charlotte and Alexa not doing, you know, they're the champions, but how much more time they're going to keep wrestling BFAB and Meacham, especially if you don't feel that they're going to be a credible opponent to try to win the title, or even now Julia and Kiana James, if they're going that route, which I hope they're not doing that, as we saw those two on Friday Night SmackDown in Orlando, Florida. I hope that they interject more story. If they could give us these matches with these women again, if their story, like case in point, when I opened up talking about Grayson Waller with the New Day, how many times we've seen the War Raiders taking on the New Day? We've seen it, if we could count it, about at least 10 dozen times. Here's the great thing about it. There was a storyline because they added Penta. Penta's looking for some allies. Right now, it kind of messed up their story with Andrade not being in the company. I thought it was going to lead for the Lucha Brothers with Andrade, six-man, that were going to team up against Grayson Waller and the New Day. We kind of felt that was going that direction, but of course things happen. Andrade no longer with the company. They insert the War Raiders, but there's a storyline. They're trying to ban the Mexican Destroyer. That Mexican Destroyer that Penta placed on Grayson Waller to end that match. I mean, holy snap! That, you know, thank goodness it was a safe, because especially at the way they, you know, the beginning of the week could have been a disaster. Especially the way they ended, WWE would have been having a PR nightmare when it comes to ring safety. They dodged a bullet there on Monday Night Raw. I can't say that about Friday night. Let's stick with the WWE topic, and then we'll move on to NXT. And let's talk about that later on. Usually I like to go by the order of the week, going to Tuesday, but since we're on the WWE and TNA and NXT are kind of intertwined one another, we'll go that route just for this week. Here's what I want to go, you know, let me close out Monday Night Raw, and then we'll go to SmackDown. We'll do both while they coexist and jump back and forth. the Cody Rhodes talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy saying Jay is not himself, and Jay receiving Cody Rhodes and eyeing the world title. And a lot of people want to say no, he didn't. He looked at the title twice. They're teasing. Jay doesn't have to turn heel. Jay just wants a title shot. Simple. Remember, in a heel's mindset, they're not healed. All they're doing is justifying their cause, their thought process, what is fair for them. Now, of course, they'll do things that we don't agree with to try to get their point across. I don't know if they'll turn Jay heel, man. With all the merchandise, the entrances, the eating, although at least on my watch along, when I do the watch along, guys and girls are getting a little fed up with how long these eating sessions take, 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Oh, he's going to do it again. Here's the thing. On television, and I don't know how the WWE is going to cater these days anymore. On television, for us who's viewing at home, could be a little long in the tooth. But just think about this. For all those people that has that building filled and they're spending a lot of money to be in that building, and if giving them an extra 5 minutes of eating and an encore is going to keep them satisfied, or it's going to keep them, to the point where they're not going to remember the outlandish prices that they're paying at that moment, and for the amount of less wrestling they're getting. Remember, Raw used to be 3 hours, and possibly at times maybe 3.5 to 4, depending if they're taping, whatever they used to tape, either main event before or back then, Sunday Night Heat, whatever they were taping prior, dark matches, and then the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. That's a long evening and you got your bang for your buck. Now these days they're condensing it, and the prices are much more larger. If they want to let the crowd eat in the arenas for that long, I think WWE has no problem with that, because they know the big picture. They're giving them their money. So I think my point, make that long story short, I think the eating is going to stay. I think Jey Uso is going to stay the babyface, but it wouldn't hurt for him to get some fresh opponents for Cody. Now, you never know where these storylines take us. Cody could turn heel, maybe with Randy Orton. I don't think so. I'm just throwing that out there, guys. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying what could happen down the road. You never know when it comes to WWE booking. At this point, I don't know what booking wants to do myself. I had a pretty good idea with Vince where they might be going. Sometimes you could telegraph it. Sometimes they're a little predictable, where there was nothing wrong with some predictability. But how you got there, how you story told, was what got you hooked in to that predictability angle, because you wanted to see, I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't see it that way. That was the fun part back in the day with the creative. Now, sometimes, it doesn't, I sometimes raise an eyebrow, like, what are we doing? All right, I didn't see that there. Doesn't make sense at the moment. That's where they have us now here in 2025 when it comes creative. Look, I thought Monday Night Raw, setting up for a week, set the tone well. Especially after that WrestlePalooza disappointment, because a lot of people said disappointment, especially it was it wasn't really, let me rephrase that. It wasn't a disappointing PLE. It was just a mediocre event. I thought everything was entertaining. There was nothing boring. The card placement, again, you saw my review for WrestlePalooza, was off. I thought the young man, Andrew, I forget his last name, from the ESPN, that's getting everyone on buzz, blazing with his C. I thought it was a fair assessment. I thought it was fair. It was a passing grade. It was a PLE that was presentable for a wrestling fan to watch on a Saturday night. It was good enough, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great enough that you have to stay home on a Saturday night when the weather's still tolerable, where you don't need a jacket, you don't need a coat, you don't need, it's not inclement weather, still beautiful to go for long walks, to enjoy the night, all that stuff, all that good stuff when you have good weather. That premium live event did not warrant any higher a reason for you to stay home if you're a single man, or a young couple on a Saturday night. I think that's where he got his grade from, but I would have given the same grade. I would have gave it probably a B minus or C minus. C plus, because I wish they would have closed out with a stronger main event. No disrespect to Cody. He's your undisputed world champion, Drew McIntyre, but it went nowhere. It was nothing there like a pomp and circumstances. He beat Drew, which a champion, by the way, that's what a champion, if he's going to retain, should do in his first title defense. But there was no other, what storyline did progress there? Other than on Friday Night SmackDown in Orlando, we heard Drew McIntyre talk about the referee getting in his way. The referee cost him. And I like when Pierce, Nick Aldis comes out, got into a little bit of a argument with him, always blaming, whining, complaining. But then they ushered us away immediately with Jacob Fatu. Now, are you guys excited to see Drew McIntyre, Jacob Fatu? I think yes, in a way. But here's the loophole. What happened to Damian Priest and Jacob? I know Damian is stuck or in a great feud, not stuck, in a feud with Aleister Black currently right now. And maybe after that conclusion, we could get back. But they never definitely said it was Jacob and Damian Priest. They just met in the back, had a backstage exchange, and they left it there. I don't know if they're going to go back to that. Do we want to see it? I personally do. I actually would like to see Jacob and Damian, but both are baby faces. This is an issue here. They're not afraid of babyface, heel versus heel. Maybe this is all gets reset after Survivor Series War Games. We don't know. Remember, right now they have to set up for these War Games matchup. Crown Jewel looks like it's pretty much almost set as the card for this upcoming week. That's in a couple weeks when they go to Perth, Australia. Let's go to Friday Night SmackDown. I wanted to give an honorable mention to JD McDonough on Monday Night Raw and Rusev. Banger of a match. I tell you, JD McDonough slowly but surely is turning into his Jordan Devlin days in NXT UK, NXT 2.0. You have to watch some of his matchup. Him and Giovanni Vinci used to put on some great bangers. The guy could go. Rusev trying to go after that quest of the Intercontinental title. That's a storyline that's going to keep playing out week to week, especially with Dirty Dominic. We'll see where that goes. And Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, they're still keeping that little bit sizzle alive there. Do we want to see some more AJ Lee and Seth Rollins? I know everyone's saying that it's already, they need a blow-off match with Punk and Seth Rollins once and for all. I tend to agree with you there, but I don't know if they're going to continue with that route. Right now, I'm stifled. I just got to wait for the creative where they're going with this. One of the other mentions here, the AJ Styles had a lot to do in social media with the one and only John Cena. Called him, and we got that match there. That was set up there by a tweet on your Twitter by John, AJ Styles. Then boom, a couple hours later, Triple H announced that it could, they're giving that match AJ Styles versus John Cena. Wouldn't be surprised if Brock Lesnar breaks up that matchup. Wouldn't be surprised one bit. Brock Lesnar interrupts that, breaks that matchup off, and that's the end of that one, to be honest with you. Having no contest, although I would like to see a winner between them, but you really want to squander 5 appearances left for John Cena before he's done. After Perth will be 4. Do we really want to squander those opportunities? I don't know what at this point, I don't know what WWE is doing. I really don't. I really don't know what WWE is going to do. Everyone could speculate. Could it be Dominic Mysterio, or is John Cena just going to have matches, after AJ Styles? Give me John, we even heard The Miz throw his name there, complaining. And by the way, as much as like it or not, The Miz has a lot of merit of what he's saying. The Miz has a major merit. Miz has been one of those John Cena opponents. Like it or not, like it, Miz, don't like The Miz now in 2025. This guy, during the beginning of John Cena's tour, I think he should have been one of the names put in front of John Cena to wrestle. But that heel turn, you couldn't do it at the heel turn because Miz is a healer. He's a heel, or just get in his way. And Miz just, I don't know, the Miz, somewhere, somehow, in Europe, somehow they should have had John Cena even just have a match with The Miz. They missed out on that opportunity. I don't know if he does have a big gripe on it. Good to see Paul Heyman in Orlando at Friday Night SmackDown. coming out there talking. I like when, of course, we talked about that. If he's talked about Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. Don't know if you want to see Cody Rhodes versus Brock in the near future. That's up to you guys. We already seen it. Personally, we saw those three on his way to Cody on his second redemption tour to try to get that World Heavyweight title. Brock raised his hand. You got to give me a good story on why. You just can't have it because Paul Heyman, he came back, he beat John Cena, he's with Paul Heyman, and now Cody, he wants Cody again. I need a story. I need a story, not just there. One thing I want to talk about, the number one contender, Street Profits, Melo Miz. Finally, Melo pulling the trigger to kind of separate himself from the Miz. There was that part where you thought Dawkins and Montez were going to have that split. They've been teasing it, although that's still on the table because we saw the Wyatt family come out at the end of that matchup as the Melo Miz loses to Angelo and Montez Ford. One thing I noticed that Melo didn't want to get the tag. One thing I was just a little bit slight disappointed with my city in Orlando. I kind of wanted to hear the crowd, at least the crowd that was there. There's a lot of NXTers a lot of NXT faithful that went to that SmackDown. I would have loved them to start the cheer the Melo cheers, because that needs to, if Melo's going to get a push in 2025 into 2026, we need the crowd. We need the chance of Melo going up for Carmelo Hayes, especially because I don't want to hear the fake outrage on the internet that, oh, Melo doesn't get pushed. Melo, I hope never. Melo, let's say Melo gets to a release. I don't want the Dakota Kai on a Karrion Kross, which, by the way, you don't hear a peep of any Karrion Kross people anymore. I mean, Kross should be in the WWE, but that died down quick. But my point is, we need to start cheering for Melo now. If you want Melo to get over, get more television time, get that WWE internal push from the agents, from the producer, from the booker, we need to be vocal, cheering Melo when Melo comes out, not just sit there on your hands and say, oh, and regardless, even if you think he's not going to go over, but you know how you change the creative, how do you change the booker by your applause, your cheers, your chants. What do you think LA Knight continues to be showcased and given? LA Knight is what? He's lost like 7 to 8 main event matches to the same opponents, but he still goes out there. Why? Because everyone wants to say, yeah, LA Knight, yeah. They hear the roar of the crowd. If you don't cheer your favorites, not just for Carmelo Hayes, your favorites in total. If you don't cheer your favorites, anyone, and you stay quiet, you don't start a chant, they're not hearing it in the back. They feel no pop. No pop means crowd is not invested. You know what? Have another piece of sponge cake at catering. That's not what you want for your favorite talent, because then after a while they you have good luck in your future endeavors. Then you want to go on your YouTube video platform, you want to go on Instagram, you want to go on Twitter and start hashtagging deserve better, change the creative. One way you start changing is your voice, your merchandise. If you buy them, and I know Karrion Kross didn't work for Kross because people bought a lot of merchandise a little too late, but also they want to hear. One thing very disappointing with Karrion, you don't hear anyone cheer "We want Karrion" chants. We didn't even hear it the first Monday Night Raw coming off of his release when they were in Canada, in Montreal or Quebec. With Quebec, we didn't hear them. You heard a few here and there in Boston, but it just didn't catch any momentum. I feel bad for Karrion Kross. I hope they had an opportunity there, but let's stay on track. What we're talking about is that Friday Night SmackDown. Throughout the thread of SmackDown, we saw Stephanie Vaquer all across. First, you saw with Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill later in the night, and of course, Nia Jax. Love to see that interaction with those women. Also, first before that was Chelsea Green trying to recruit a new Secret Service member, Piper Niven Getwell. She's dealing with an injury, undisclosed neck injury. All the well for Piper Niven, get back, get healthier. The injury bug is hitting the WWE and professional wrestling all across hard. Some of the top talents, even champions, we'll get into that in a second, all hit the injury bug on all the company platforms. So my goodness, all the talents stay safe. Everyone that's wrestling on the independent scenes, be safe, be well, and stay healthy. That's my, from a fan to a fan, for all you talents out there. Yes, we got to see backstage Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss looking on the match between B-Fab, Meecham, Julia, and Kiana. We get it. So we get Soruka interrupt them. We get some NXT talent here. Charlotte, Soruka. I didn't know how Zarya was as tall as Charlotte. I don't know what's going on in NXT when it comes to Zarya. I don't know who she pissed off or who's up not seeing her. I don't need Zarya to sit there to be a flag waver. I need Zarya to go out there, be a mean machine out there wrestling. The fact that we haven't, it's been both ladies have been in the company coming up for a whole calendar year. I don't know why we have not seen Jordynne Grace versus Zarya. We've seen Mariah May, or aka Blake Monroe, and Jordynne Grace. We'll talk about that and coming up next segment. But we have not seen Zarya to the point where she's not even getting that much wrestling time. Am I invested, Soruka and Zarya, in a tag team against on your tag team champions? I would like to see it, but I'm tired of saying this for about a year now, since January. It's going to come out to a calendar year. When is Zarya going to be turn heel on Soruka? From Zarya's presentation, shows heel. The way they brought her in with that vignette, the way she looks, her face painting. She shouldn't be playing Ring Around the Rosies or cat or any stupidity with Soruka. I'm not, and I'm sorry, I'm going to call it stupidity because it's not resonating. It's not making Zarya look like a badass. It's just making her look like she belongs in Chase U. And then bring Zarya over with that pomp and circumstances to be a flag waver. Now, if she wasn't ready, she wasn't ready. But they haven't. She looks the part. She checked the bill. She checks all the boxes. I don't know what's going on with the WWE. Sometimes I wonder if where's their eyeballs for creative with some of these talent. It frustrates the hell out of me. And you're gonna bring them up to SmackDown to do what? To be Soruka's vignette valet? It's not. I know they have a lot of they have a lot of high hopes on Soruka. Soruka's okay. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you one thing. If it wasn't for that Soul Snatcher, she would be just another typical wrestler. That would got her over with the crowd. I don't see the big, and I seen her from the first time she walked into the building. And the Soul Snatcher was awesome. I was in the building live when she came up, when she did the Soul Snatcher for the very first time. Great move. She's gotten better, but it's not to the warrant where they're overhyping her. She's still not there yet, guys. There's still more seasoning from Soul. I know she's your United States. Yeah, she's your North American Women's Champion and your Speed Champion. Ask you this: how many defenses that she had with that Women's North American title? Not much. They're more focused on the Speed Champion in the short term. That tells you a lot there. But one thing I did like was the United States Open Challenge. Sami Zayn took on the young OG Von Evans. Sami Zayn again for WWE continues to put on match of the week for the WWE with these open challenges. Listen, I'm not gonna hide the fact that Sami Zayn is not my cup of coffee. Sami Zayn is not my favorite. I'm not a big fan of Sami Zayn. Just his character, but his in-ring, this guy continues to put on bangers after bangers. This guy with Javon Evans, they put on a hell of a show for the people in Orlando, Florida. Javon Evans, 21 years old, watching him grow up in front of our eyes, coming into the WWE, seeing him burst on the wrestling scene and the independent scene, seeing him 18 years old on All Elite Wrestling, making his debut, then coming over at 19 to the WWE, seeing him grow from leaps and bounds, even from his promos. This is a kid who's a student of the game. This is a kid who will go with his own money. Yes, being a WWE performer, with his own money, going to the theaters and watching WrestlePalooza, and of his own money, Instead of using his credentials or his login pass and watch it at home, this kid wanted to hear what the fans had to say about the other wrestlers, to take notes. Student of the game. Got to give that man credit. That kid is going to great places, and he was the talk of the week. Him and Leon Slater. And oddly enough, that same night, they announced that we're going to get them at Bound for Glory. Great job there. And it didn't take a rocket scientist to see that. You didn't have to be a wrestling insider. You didn't have to pay $14.99 to see that those two young men were going to have a collision course eventually to meet one another. Why not at the biggest event for TNA, Bound for Glory? And that was announced there. Love it. We'll stick to the WWE here. Let's wrap the WWE before we get into TNA NXT, although we're bleeding both of them in here. Let's talk about that triple threat. This is the one that's on everyone's mind. The Women's Championship, WWE Women's Champion, Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, Nia Jax. Look, I was watching this match. This match was really started off strong. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was a very good match. Extremely good. Here's the bad. That cut. Don't know if that was an accident for Jade Cargill going into that. I don't know if she was overselling it or tried to oversell it getting into the barricade, and she didn't move her head in time, where Nia doesn't know her own strength. They were trying to they want to vilify and attack not Jade Cargill, but Nia Jax for her past history. Others want to say the inexperience of Jade Cargill. Look, it was just an off night, or that off opportunity, especially for the triple threat, where many wrestlers in the industry say that is one of the most toughest matches to partake when you have three different individuals, because now you don't have there's actually four when you count the official in that match, to make all this sequence safe, the art and the sequence of wrestling to be safe and without danger. You have to take that to consideration. And for Jade getting cut open, if you're ever done boxing, combat sports, or just any cut, especially on the eyebrow area, it feels like you're being burned. If that cut open, not only irritates, it burns. Just think of that. And then guess what? And it's already feeling like it burned. Guess what? How is it going to amplify? With sweat, makeup and sweat, hairspray, whatever, gel, whatever they have going, those chemicals rushing down into that cut. Your last thing you're thinking about, yes, adrenaline kicks in, but you tend to forget, especially for Jade Cargill. I don't think she ever has busted and have so much leakage ever in her life. She don't look like she's been taking a beating or have bleeded ever in her life that way. I don't know her. I don't think so. Just think about what she's thinking at that moment there. Show must go on, and she's there. I got to give now the finish part. That sequence when Nia forgot to kick out. You see referee Daphne LaShawn counting. You see where she was supposed to be a kick out and Nia did not, and she still went with it. Here's where, and I'm pretty sure the agent, TJ Wilson, will probably have a conversation with them. They'll correct that. Probably say for the referee, you continue with the count. If they don't kick out, that's on them. The referee should have went through and gone. And I know she wants to protect the ladies, because I know they want to, because no one's there to see the officials. Everyone's there to see the talent. No one goes, here's my ticket. I want to go see Jessica Carr. Or I want to see, and no disrespect. You ladies do phenomenal work. All the referees, officials, they all do great work. That's, if we don't have to say these refs stink, you've done a great job. And for the women referees in WWE, they're A+. Daphne LaShawn, Jessica Carr. When you know their names and you don't have nothing negative to say about them, that's a great thing. That's a phenomenal thing. Taught well, just both, and all the officials in the WWE. They all across. Sometimes could they get something that makes you roll your eyes? Absolutely. NFL does that. Major League Baseball does that. NBA does it. All the officials. You all know a few officials that you just can't stand and know your favorite sports. But these do a great job. She should have went with the 3 count. the fact that the cameraman kept that angle right there, up close and personal. That's another. They just had an off night from production, from the talent for a moment, and even the officials. Oh, it was the ugly. That was the bad part was the cut. The ugly was the production. Everything was in a bad. It was a perfect, terrible storm that closed out what was a real good Friday Night SmackDown when they had competition. They had a lot of competition. You had TNA going on with Victory Road live, and a lot of the reactionary podcasters were covering TNA because there was a promo code. They were collaborating, allowing them to show that on YouTube. They jumped on that there. Not a lot of too much eyeballs on that internet community on that show, but a lot of people watching at home. Production wise, that just didn't hit the bill, and thought SmackDown put on a pretty decent show or good show than prior weeks. They felt like a little bit they had competition. They wrapped it up a little high, and look, this is 52 weeks a week. This is 52 episodes that they give us, or 50. They probably give, holiday time, they give it the best of. This is 50, anywhere from 49 to 50 weeks of wrestling live. They just had, it wasn't terrible. It's just a mistake there. And I understand this is where the tribalistic folks comes in and say, well, when the other company does it, everybody magnifies it. Because those mistakes happen over and over and over. If you see this happening again on Monday or Fridays from the WWE product, then you're more than happy to say, what the hell is going on? This doesn't happen often when it comes to the WWE. A mistake like that with the pin. It's just something that happens once in a blue moon. We'll see where it goes. Look, did it ruin the rest of SmackDown? Not really. To me, it did not. We're still getting, at the end of the day, people would have been so irate because I don't know why. Don't know why. Where's the hate from? If Jade Cargill would have been your women's champion, your WWE women's champion going to Perth against Stephanie Vicaire, I think people would have hated it. I think people love to hate Nia Jax. I think if she would have been the women's world champion, you guys would have destroyed it. You guys would have hated online. So the right call, at least for now, to appease the WWE universe or the online contrarians, is having Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vicaire. I think your better pure matchup was those two ladies. Also, remember last time when when Tiffany went to Perth, Australia for Elimination Chamber. Remember that ovation she got. I think that's what got her onto the main roster, noticed. Remember how I told you earlier in the stream with Carmelo, you got to cheer your favorites. So the producers, the agents, the booker hears that. You don't think Tiffany, I understand her beauty helps too. Don't get me wrong. Her looks help. But you don't think that cheer, the Australian crowd going banana for Tiffany Stratton, didn't get her that extra opportunities and push? That's why I tell you, wrestling fans, those that are listening, that want to choose to listen, if you have ears, listen. You want your favorite wrestlers over, you need to start cheering them. You need to start not sitting on your hands. It's not a hot dog break, but you could always get a dude wipe break. Let me give you my sponsor.
Dude wipes. The leaves may be falling and the dumps are calling. Dumpkin spice season is here.
Thank you. That's definitely. There's always time for dude wipes. Salute. Thank you, Dude Wipes, the official sponsor of the Sports Jedi Network. Thank you so much. Yes, so cheer your guys on, cheer your favorites, and you get them over. And that's what we got for Perth, Australia. That was a great matchup, a great way of getting your favorite over. But SmackDown was good. I hope that, but everyone's going to remember the last thing you remember was that nasty botch, unfortunately. Something that wasn't botch. TNA Victory Road. I thought Victory Road, with all the different, getting everyone involved, all the reactionary podcasters, all the names, all the usuals, all the face shifters, of the internet community were there streaming. We were on our playback doing ours, and we were on YouTube dual streaming. And what a wonderful night for TNA wrestling and NXT live. It all started at Tuesday night at NXT. I was in the building. I was at Orlando. I was at the Performance Center. If you see, I was in the front row with a white Yankee hat sitting there. I got to see it up close and personal, live, in person, throughout the thread of the night. Yes, I know Chris asked me, he was doing the watch along on our channel. Did you see all the different TNA wrestlers in via the parking lot? They showed it on the big screen at the Performance Center. We got to see from Vance Warner, from Eric Young, from Matt Cardona, outside guys, Steve Macklin walking in the back with Veronica. We saw them all. We saw everything there at the night, all the different tensions. I thought the Lexus King match, the lights out match with Bourne was just great. You had to be in the arena. I watched it again on television. In the arena, the match was so much more 10 times better. The reason why, for the sound. I don't know. It didn't come across on TV. The whipping and the lashes that both competitors received from the Lexus King white belt were brutal. They magnified, they echoed through. You could hear the belt hitting the flesh and that pop throughout that Performance Center, so loud and ample. It didn't come as crisp on television for some reason. I did enjoy the way they finished the psychology with the stairs. Of course, get that victory. Great job there. And by the way, Stephanie Vicare's father was in attendance on the hard camera side, taking in the matchup there. He also got a treat with the matchup with the Evolve Women's Champion, which is coming up soon. I'm not giving you any spoilers whatsoever. I just say this. If you have an opportunity to see that on Tubi, the match between Kendall Gray and Carly Armstrong, you need to make that a must watch. If you have 20 minutes to spare of your time and you're not, I don't watch Evolve, you need to be open-minded. You need to go sit down and watch that match. Get it on Tubi. Go sit down. Watch those two ladies. I said this, match of the year when it comes to Evolve. And it could hold its own as match of the year for the NXT brand. That's how great those two ladies killed it. Again, the finish, phenomenal. Everything from the in-ring psychology, the amount of time the match went, everything. Those two ladies, bravo, bravo. I hope that's a rivalry that we get to see play out from Evolve again to NXT, Stand and Deliver, and possibly a WrestleMania matchup. I hope those ladies grow with their careers the way that match resonated. I wanted to give them their flowers. Kaylee Armstrong and Kendall Gray. They both, you know what? They worked great. To me, I hope that, and I'm not saying, look, I know that's developmental. So you people might say that was a matchup. That was, for those two women where they are in their wrestling career, I'm not saying they're exactly like that. That's a Brett and Shawn type of match for those women and where they're at in their career. That's how I compliment. I need you to watch it, guys. I need you to watch it. You need to watch it. It's coming up in another week or so. But again, no spoilers. Great matchup. Great matchup there. Wanted to give those ladies their flowers. Yeah, so being at NXT on Tuesday night, seeing the thread throughout the night with TNA possibly invading. Joe Henry is the one guy that I wanted to talk about. Joe Henry, I don't know where he sits. Joe Henry, we saw him in a match where we're teaming up with the Chase U guys, taking on Dark State, but he did not come out at the end. You know, we've seen throughout the night, and then when that main event starts and you see the TNA roster fill out the Performance Center, like you turn and they're right there, like a whisper in the wind. It's literally. You see everyone there. You saw Ying Ying Lee. You saw Zaya Brookside. You saw Eric Young, Frankie Kazarian, Steve Macklin, Moose, Vance Warner, then Matt Cardona. The building was going to explode When Matt Cardona makes his way into the Performance Center, into the crowd, the place went bananas. Then Mike Santana comes down and goes into commentary. I mean, it was just a great evening. You had Heather Reckless, or Heather by Elegance as well. They didn't want to leave her out. You know, you have Steph Delander walking in the back. There were the who's who of TNA was out there front and center. And then when Trick smacks Mike and Mike chases him in the ring, all hell breaks loose. I mean, that place went bananas. I lost my voice. It was just that was epic to be in the Performance Center and seeing that break down in front of us. Everyone, the Iconics, wanted to give them their shout out. The Inspiration, aka the Iconics, in there. They all hit the ring. They all went back shut. And Cedric was there. Cedric. I mean, it was just a moment in wrestling history that you're going to remember. Then when the cameras, we saw Ricky Saints running after and grabbing that NXT Raw title, Ober's hand comes out. I tell you what, the camera stopped rolling, but the brawl didn't. At least 5 to 10 minutes after those wrestlers, the locker room, the NXT locker room pans out. They will continue to grow. They will continue to brawl. Where you saw TNA standing on top, strong in the NXT ring. See the TNA talents retrieving, along with Trick Williams, retrieving towards the back. TNA acknowledged by the crowd, getting the cheer at the Performance Center from the fans. And then they went to go to the back to bring some more damage to the NXT locker room, where, of course, you see the famous video of Shawn Michaels in between and trying to separate, and it continued. It was just a wonderful moment for rest. Who was the big winner of that night? Like the words of Tommy Dreamer says, the fans, all of us fans, because that was the talking point. That was the talking point throughout the whole entire week. It was just like this invasion angle. What's next? What's everyone on pins and needles, on edge. Then the following day, I get the privilege to interview Santino Marella on our channel. If you missed it, check it out here on the Sports Jedi Network. We managed to talk to the director of authority, Santino Marella, and he just told us, check out the interview, paraphrasing, you know, they're tired of it. They're not going to take it. They're going to take matters in their own hands, you know, the talent wise. So we hear from him. Come Thursday, you have the closeout. This is where it hurts TNA wrestling, but hopefully in the near future, we have some good news where we're going to announce a TV deal. Hopefully, we're going to be coming live. We're going to have an opportunity to see TNA on a weekly, lively basis where we could continue these invasion angles, going forward. They had their television on Thursday night, was their final stop before Victory Road. One thing that came out of it, we saw Mr. Anderson. Good job seeing Mr. Anderson in the ring, teamed up with Steve Macklin. That was a good match there. Anderson looks great. Great job there to bring him there to showcase them. Great. I wanted to see that. We saw also it's going to be a tables match. Dudley's, Hardy's for the last time. Tables match. Also, interesting note. Bubba Ray said Dudley boys, not Team 3D. He said many times before on the radios he had to say Team 3D because that's what gave birth in TNA. They weren't the Dudley boys in TNA. They were Team 3D. But then he corrected. I don't know if that was a mistake out of his cutting the promo, or he says, yes, he realizes, yes, I said the Dudleys because we are the Dudleys. Take it for what you're going to take it as for a grain of salt. Take it for what it's worth. Also, I heard if you wanted to check out, Eric Young has done some great interviews throughout all the cross doing media. He called the WWE in multiple interviews because I listened to some of the interviews of a lot of the wrestlers that I'm going to interview on my channel from TNA. When I'm told ahead of time you're going to interview so and so wrestler, I try to listen to other interviews that they have had because I don't want to hit them with the redundant questions, you know, because they're busy in their day and they don't want to seem robotic. This question again. So I try to listen to a lot of different other people that are either before me to interview certain wrestlers that we've seen, that we've had the privilege to have on our channel. What I normally do is I listen to their interviews, try to figure out questions that they have not been asked to the current storyline or the current promotion or what is being promoted at the moment. We live in the present. not something that happened in the past. And I'll throw a little hypothetical questions once in a while, just giving you a little insight of my mind thinking, and then I'll go with that, so they don't feel like, oh, here we go. This, how many times I asked the same question? You know, if I'm team LaRussa, team Team Johnny, you know, Cobra Kai. I mean, I try to be different. I want to try to, you know, get there, make them answer some questions they haven't asked. So that's just me. My point is, Eric Young mentioned the WWE, the mothership. She mentioned the mothership several times. Oh, the mothership. You know, I'm like, usually that's when you're under the same umbrella. And last time I saw, TNA was a separate entity. So listen to those quirks, those little hints there, whatever the case is. Look, in a world, do we eventually see WWE possibly purchased by TKO? Maybe, but right now they're not. They belong to Anthem. They're an Anthem product. They're an Anthem, and so comes Mr. Silver, President Silver. Carlos Silva is the head of the show of TNA right now, the president, and right now they're working on them. So I know people are complaining, especially after we saw on Victory Road. Victory Road was full of surprises. Let's go right into Victory Road. Victory Road was full of surprises. Especially what's going on with Monster Slamovich. I don't know. Listen, I don't know the whole facts. I don't know the whole story. I don't know the truth. I don't even went in to look for what's going on at the point. At this point, I just hope that both parties in this situation get the proper help and the proper healthy help for them to move on and excel in whatever situation is going on. Who was wrong? Who was right? Right now, it's for those two victims or those two people to get the proper lives in order. If it's away from them, fine. If it's together, whatever. You know, just for the best possible healthy solution for those parties involved right now. And if it's something, I said the same thing about Manny, aka Andrade, needs a mental health break from wrestling. Do it. Take a mental break away from wrestling. If that's something that, you know, whatever's going on with him, the same thing goes here. In this case, Slamovich. Don't know what's going on. No longer part of that Knockouts rematch. Then the big news. To me, this one came out of left field. Ash, by Elegance, has to relinquish the title because she's no longer able to compete in ring. Now, no one knows what's the severity, what's the issue, what's the injury for Ash, why she's no longer able to compete. Personally, if she says she's not healthy, she's not stable, let her, when she issues a press conference or a statement of what it is, let's give her her respect. Let's give Ash her respect. Let's not speculate. Let's not say that we know. Let her have her privacy. Let her do her thing. And when she's able to disclose it publicly, then we'll listen. When it comes from the horse's mouth, from her, then we could react and say, you know, but all in all, thank you, Ash. Thank you, Ash. By Elegance, her rebranding, her resurgence in TNA wrestling has gone hand in hand with the success. She's part of that big success in his renaissance rebuild for TNA wrestling currently right now. No doubt about it. Bringing in the concierge, George, the Iceman, was a great job. Bringing him in the way he just captivates on the microphone. That act got over with her coming in, both of them. And then bringing the Elegance brand, Heather from the independent scene and Maggie from the independent scene, and just being part of them. And Maggie has, I've said it many times, Maggie Lee has a upside, monster future in TNA. Learning and just I hope they keep those two together. And I hope they keep growing in the Knockouts division under George tutelage, and they keep giving them the opportunities. Yes, Ash, currently not right now. Just keep pushing those two ladies, in my opinion. We also saw the Knockouts title tag team match, the Knockouts tag team match being pushed to Thursday night on Impact Zone. The whole card switched. Everything was changed. I know we were like, wow, they're changing these things on the fly. They gave us a women's battle royal. The final two women of the battle royal. This is what I love about TNA. They don't do the typical battle royal, then you become the women's champion. Remember, they did that with WWE with Becky Lynch winning the battle royal. She won the vacant championship. When Indy Hartwell, out of all people, had a vacant. They did it here with the final two. Then those two ladies will have a in-ring one-on-one matchup later in that evening. So we were guaranteed by the end of Victory Road we were going to get a new TNA Knockouts champion. Well, we didn't know that we were going to have representation from NXT and the one and only Kalani Jordan. Now, one person that deserves to be there for her inaugural run on as a North American champion, her baby face, hardworking, keeping her nose clean, was a Kalani Jordan. Kalani Jordan, I think if that's a representative that NXT was going to send, they send the right one. They send a really good one out there, although I thought it would have been Lash Legend personally. But that's a story for another time. Kalani comes out. She actually survives along with Ying Lee, and they're set up for the final. I know a lot of people said Danny Nuna. Why wasn't Danny Nuna at least the interim champion or the champion going into Bound for Glory, especially if Indy Hartwell was the special referee? Indy Hartwell still kept her stipulation being the guest referee, and she is the number one contender that's going to wrestle at Bound for Glory. You know that. My opinion is there, and I know I see this a lot on the internet, a lot of people complaining and griping what is why Danny Nuna did not. There is a natural storyline, and you're right to a degree. There is a natural storyline with Indy Hartwell, Jody Threat, and Danny Nuna, but I thought they paid that off already. I thought they already concluded and paid that off there, and you're just going to rehash or stretch it. What Kalani Jordan, who became your TNA Knockouts champion later in that evening, getting Ying Lee, hitting her with the one of a kind. There was a spot in the match where she went for her Hurricanrana, but she noticed, I don't know how, in the mid-flight they were going, if that Hurricanrana, someone was going to hit the announce table and it was going to be a catastrophe of injury. It turned out to be a power bomb. People were still upset. Oh, the botches. I thought they had the better outcome of the evils. Either, okay, you try to do the Hurricanrana, someone gets their head split open, and then it's going to be out, or a torn ACL, and you're all, and no one wins. If that's the worst, the best of the worst outcomes, I'll take it. Kalani came back up, jumped up. Maybe said, oh, she should have sold it. Sold what? It was a power bomb on the outside where it looked, it just, you know what? That was the best of the worst that could have happened, in my opinion. Again, that's nothing to be like, oh, the whole pay-per-view sucked. No, it was just a one minor mistake, and you see people amplifying. And it's the funny thing is, even those podcast reactors that TNA invites them on to participate, they're the ones ridiculing it. Wow, I mean, weight of being very gracious to you, to someone who's hosting you. I mean, malagradecido. That's what I call in my language. That's malagradecido. You see it all over the X. You see all over there. Shaitan. Yeah. I mean, they, crapping all over the product. That's not the way of doing it. Just say, they had a messed up. You could see what we said. Man, that didn't hit. But man, the lesser, we noticed it immediately. The lesser of both evils. But I digress there. She wins. Kalani Jordan adds to here's where people say, oh, I'm tired of NXT wrestlers taking all the titles. Trick has it. Now, Kalani, you need fuel to the fire. What are they announcing? TNA NXT Invasion, which is going to happen on Tuesday. By the way, it's not a premium live event. They're going to go up against All Elite Wrestling, who's moving to Tuesday nights because of the MLB playoffs. They moved that title Tuesday. They'll move it into the same time slot. They'll go face-to-face, head-to-head. And WWE, instead of bringing up talent from the main roster because they're going to Perth, Australia, they're getting ready for the Australian trip, they'll team up with TNA. They got the best of both worlds. They're bringing TNAs, and they'll have, of course, we'll mention that in a minute, the Invasion PLE special, TV special they're going to give us on the 7th. But you need fuel to the fire. Why? Kalani Jordan has a title that belongs to TNA, NXT wrestler. And Carlos Silva, if you look at his tweet, he says, we're coming back. We're taking our titles back. He made it plural a week before. You got to look in between those lines guys, so many people want to be spoilers, or I knew they want to write the whole story plot or match card first on Friday Night SmackDown and give away all the spoilers. Sometimes some of the spoilers are right there by some of the people by their tweets. You don't need to be a wrestling insider to sometimes know when things are being dictated. When I saw Kalani Jordan and Ying Ying Lee, I said Kalani's winning. It only makes sense. Sometimes a little bit of wrestling business logic comes into effect because it adds more fuel to the fire for Kalani to win that title, because now TNA is more infuriated. They need more motivation, especially in the knockouts division, to go out there and beat up on NXT. What if it was just trick? The women really don't have any gripe there. Our titles with Ash. Our titles or at that time, with Ash, we don't need to go. I mean, let the men deal with that. Let them go after Trick. Now both NXT titles are held by both TNA titles are held by NXT wrestlers. I meant to say. Now there's more fuel to the fire. You need story. You need fuel. You need something to portray as animosity or anarchy to want to reign upon the NXT locker room. And you got it there on Victory Road. I like the whole thing from Victory Road, the Mustafa Ali versus Moose match. I like the conclusion. Referee got distracted. Tasha Steele dressed up as one of the dancers. Low blows the Moose, and Mustafa Ali made it make sense. Make it make sense, we always say, on getting the victory. And that's how you beat a big behemoth. Outside influence with the low blow. Mustafa Ali with the 450 splash gets the victory. Plain and simple. Great job. Loved it. They of course, we all know that Jeff Hardy cannot go into Canada for personal reasons. You got Matt Hardy alone. They had the AJ Francis penthouse interview, and it led to a match, one-on-one tables match. Just giving you a warm-up, a preview. I don't know where Rich Swann is these days. Rich Swann, I don't know if that was a one-off for a couple of weeks and no longer with the company. I got to find out where Rich Swann is in all this. I know he was on tour with NWA, so I don't know if Rich Swann is still with TNA. It was just a couple for an appearance and out if he goes. But I hope Rich Swann and AJ Francis challenge the Hardys for tag team gold after Bound for Glory or upcoming becoming number one contenders. Interesting to see there. We also saw Matt Cardona teaming up with the hometown man, taking on the Nemets. The Nemets continue to do great work. What Ryan Nemeth continues to do week after week, improving, they're doing a phenomenal work with him and his brother Nick Nemeth. They're main reason why a lot of the houses are packed. By the way, good job for TNA. Both nights sell out in Edmonton, Alberta. Saturday night, Friday night, packed house, over 3,700 per attendance. Good job there in that Providence. Good job there for TNA. We saw El Mesias, Ricky Banderas coming out face-to-face to Steve Macklin, who Macklin at the time was international champion. Had a great match there with Frankie Kazarian. Frankie Kazarian winning and becoming your new international champion for the king of TNA, gets gold. What's next for Steve Macklin? We asked that question. Listen, I've said this here with the invasion angle, and you're teasing AAA Mexico. Wouldn't mind them, to be honest with you, Steve Macklin to be the first TNA wrestler to capture NXT title. Although it looks like it might be the Hardys. But personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Steve Macklin getting that North American title off of the hands of Ethan Page. Steve Macklin, no offense to Travion Heights. I know you're a Pan American Olympic wrestler. And I know you wrestled and represented our country, but Steve Macklin, the perfect guy to win that North American champion back to the United States, for someone who went out there and protected with his life our country for our freedoms, along with his platoon and his, we know his backstory. Will be such a patriotic for Steve Macklin to win back that North and win it for TNA will be freaking phenomenal. Over Ethan Page, I think you even get the fans cheering for Macklin if you're an NXT diehard, because how could you Boo, an American hero who served our country, and Steve Macklin. I think Steve Macklin will be a great story. If you could play that, and you see that they play that with Kazarian taking jabs of his service, which branch of the government of the armed forces he served. And he has that successful podcast, Boots to Boots. Big fan of him. Him and his wife do a great job. He's also Tunnel for Towers organization, all the great things that Macklin does outside of the wrestling ring. You could bring that all and get promotion there for Macklin. Chasing after that North American title will be so awesome if he was the first TNA wrestler to capture NXT gold. If I was a creative, I would love to see Macklin. I'm rooting for Macklin to beat Ethan Page, but how do we get there? We're not even up to. We haven't had anything there, and I'm just fantasy booking. That would be a great for him and for Kazarian. I know the booker Tommy Dreamer wants to see that title be defended across different platforms, not just TNA wrestling. It's an international champion going out and wrestle in different spots internationally in Canada, not just Canada, but in AAA Mexico, in possibly in Europe, in different places, WWE TV. You're telling me the international champion shows up because he's the international champion in Australia, gets in the face of a AJ Styles. Everybody, and Kazarian said it here. We had the privilege to interview Frankie Kazarian on our channel, and he wants to match up with AJ Styles. AJ Styles is winding down. Says he's going to hang it up in 2026. I don't think anyone in their right mind will say no to seeing two of the Mount Rushmores of TNA Impact Wrestling wrestle before they're on their way out, especially if there's an international title involved. Frankie Kazarian, and AJ Styles. I don't think anyone will say no to that. After John Cena's whole situation, when they have that match after Perth, Australia, we'll love to see a Frankie Kazarian, AJ Styles matchup. Why not international for the international title? It's a Mount. You could even, Mount Rushmore. And look, he's good. They're going to be in Full Sail in November. TNA is going to have 3 days in Full Sail. Get your tickets. Get your tickets if you're in the Orlando, Florida section. In the Central Florida in Full Sail. TNA will be here for 3 events. Tickets will go on. I believe they're on sale. They're going on sale soon. I'll put that up on my social media accounts. So if you're in that area, if you're listening to me in the Central Florida area, let's sell that bitch out. Let's go out there and sell it out for TNA Impact. Yeah, I personally would love to see an AJ Styles, Frankie Kazarian in the near future, but we'll see what happens. Congratulations to the king of TNA, and I wanted to talk about the main event. My God, what a main event. And it was first, you look at it, goes Leon Slater, X Division champion. Myron Reed. Why? Why not? Why not? For that kid Reed to get that spot in the main event says a lot. Not only for Leon Slater, for Myron Reed, because they trusted the young wrestlers. And boy, did they trust the right group, the right 2 men. Those 2 guys put TNA. And this is a guy who is a big fan of Mike Santana. I left Mike for last for a reason. I'm a huge Mike Santana fan. And I know Mike fought Bridge Holland. Big Mike Santana fan, but I want to talk about the main event, Leon Slater and Marlon Reed. They put on a banger. The counter moves that they did, and they made it where it wasn't where they're kicking out at 1. They kept the psychology of the match right on par from that spot that sequenced out and from the out that they led to the outside of the ring, back in the finish. If you talk about a wrestler not going over without not going over, that was Marlon Reed. I hope that the TNA wrestler company sees this kid and offer him a multi-year deal if his deal is coming to a conclusion, or if he was on a pay-per-appearance deal. I hope that he gets a deal long-term. I've said this time and time again when it comes to TNA wrestling. They're going to get a TV deal. I don't think it's when. When they do get that TV deal and they get that influx of financial upgrade money-wise, they need to start building for the future. And we talked to Carlos Silva on our channel. We have asked him about possibly a performance center for TNA, getting some new younger stars, not pretty much copying the same model of NXT with the NIL, possibly working with the independent scene. We've seen that the TNA has been trying to reach out, signing independent wrestlers from the UK, some here. We've seen couple young ladies get some contracts at some TV taping in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. Some of these young ladies out there, young men from the independent scene, they need to start bringing and developing, and they have the Explosion show but they need to start allowing, at least with the financial upgrade that they're going to get from a television deal, they need to start signing and developing and bringing in their younger talents. Kazarian has about 4 more good years on television on top wrestling. The same with Eric Young. The guys that are on top that are your main players, they're starting to wind down in their back end. We've seen already Sami Callihan hanging it up. How much longer do they really have? The Hardys, the Hardys look like they're on, they could be on their last legs with another 2 to 3 years running the Hardys. Nick Nemeth got probably good 5 solid years. Ryan is not up and coming and he's not too young himself, but he's not old either. He's right in his prime. Eddie Edwards, Moose has had some back issues and some aches and pains. You have Mustafa, who is in his prime, who you could build across. But they need to start at this time. They need to start ushering some of the younger wrestlers, bring them into the company, and you have some young talent like a Marlon Reed, like a Leon Slater, like Zachary Wentz to a degree, as well as Trey Miguel. You have that, but you need to start bringing in and start under their wing and develop. I understand you don't want to have a bloated roster when it comes to TNA. I understand because of the finances and the television time and the availability to have them there. Totally understand that. They are not in a position to have a bloated roster. We get it. But they need to start scouting and looking independent scene for some younger wrestlers, not just rely on the releases or the releases of the WWE, that's not needed. WWE doesn't see that they could use. No disrespect, they have to start scouting and developing some of their out there. There's plenty of good wrestlers in the independent scene. And I know he's not a young guy. I believe he's like 36, 35 years old. Ben Bishop, one of them out there, big, tall, almost 6'9", big guy out there. Look, you bought Agent Zero. Agent Zero doesn't look like a young man. He looks like an older gentleman, just by his features. Ben Bishop, a big, tall guy there, big guy that they could use. Don't know what's going on with Zila Fatu. That's a name. He's a young guy. You bring him. Although we don't know, all roads look like Zila is heading towards the WWE. But what happened to the Fourth Rope collaboration that we saw in New York City with TNA? You don't see the Fourth Rope Tag Team Champions no more on the Hardy Boys. I don't know if they lost it. I cannot. It's tough for me to keep up with Fourth Rope, but I thought they had a collaboration partnership there with Fourth Rope. I haven't seen much interaction with Fourth Rope neither, so I don't know where that goes. But for TNA, I thought Victory Road totally was a very good show. It was a very strong Friday night PLE. It started at 9 o'clock. The timing was a little off. It gave us a little bit of both for us, but they gave us a half-hour preview show, triple threat match. The Rascals, Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, and Cedric. That's another. What a way of warming up the crowd. Was a hell of a great match. Hell of a great match. I recommend to see that, to check that out. I wanted to give them honorable mentions without saying, without not leaving them out. I wanted to make sure you heard about it because they deserve the recognition and respect. Don't treat it as a pre-show. That was a match that could have been easily part of the pay-per-view, and it was. I don't see it as a pre-show match. The chemistry between all three men was fast-paced. That's what you call a fast-paced opener. If you need it at 8:30, a pick-me-up, that was your pick-me-up to start off the wrestling show. Those guys, kudos. Rascals, let's go. Loved it there. Great job. I just continue to say great, wonderful job there. We got to see JDC returning JDC, formerly Fandango, teamed up against the Order 4, Jason Hodge, John Schuyler, and Agent Zero. Good match there too. We all know that's going to go to that Hardcore Mayhem on Bound for Glory. We'll find out what happens there. We know that the Order 4 has a man advantage due to the fact when I mentioned earlier, Moose losing to Mustafa Ali. It brings me up to my final, why I left this one out here. It was Mike Santana versus Rich Holland. Rich Holland was sent by Trick Williams, storyline-wise, to take out Mike. I thought Mike defeated Rich Holland via pinfall with the spin the block. But the main thing was that post-match. Trick Williams attacked Santana from behind. Holland's assisted and grabbed Santana's foot. Trick stood tall, holding the TNA World Champion over his head. You know me. But, you know, when I think about whoever looks strong before has that advantage. But we still got a couple of weeks between Mike Santana and Trick Williams festing. We heard at the end of the night, Santino announced Leon Slater is going to take on Javon Evans at Bound for Glory. Javon Evans, who was on fire, who has a match that night, tomorrow, or 24 hours from now, again in No Mercy, as we will get to No Mercy to close up the show. The crowd had a little booze when they mentioned Javon Evans. I think the crowd, at least in Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, they were pro TNA, uber pro TNA, rightfully so. NXT doesn't go to Alberta, Canada. They don't travel there. They're not going to get the pop that TNA was going to get. TNA, regardless if they never been there to Edmonton, but they have gone many a times to Canada. You know, we saw them recently in Montreal. We saw them in all different parts when they did the Border Wars. They've gone so many different times to Windsor. They've been so many times to Canada, so they know that TNA is friendly with Canadians. They're on their biggest platform, Skynet. They're on their biggest platform in their country, and they're featured in Canada, and Canada loves TNA. My point, I want to see where Trick Santana goes. Santana is not going to stay with his arms crossed. This Tuesday, they mentioned on No Mercy. We get to No Mercy now. No Mercy in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You cannot have two opposite places. This is what, and of course, you can't fault TNA Wrestling. You can't fault any of the companies here why they booked these venues. They had an opportunity to bring Victory Road to Canada. They didn't think that they were going to be in this partnership. They probably had this venue booked for a year ago, maybe even longer for less money, whatever the case is. It hurt it, in my opinion, because you couldn't have NXT kind of retaliate at Victory Road because they're so far away. The flight from Fort Lauderdale to Edmonton was about 7 hours with connecting flights. There is no nonstop flight to Edmonton to Miami or Fort Lauderdale. It's not. It's connecting flights. So it was a difficult task to do Invasion on a Friday to a Saturday, so I knew that wasn't going to happen. My point to Fort Lauderdale. Here we go. We start off the match. Javon Evans starts off hot against Briggs. Bang of a match. Josh Briggs hit him with everything. He threw everything but the kitchen sink at that kid, from choke slams, from power bombs, the power moves. But it was the OG's cutter. To score a hard-fought victory in the opener. This is something we saw throughout the night. This is something that HBK's booking showed us. A lot of David versus Goliath on No Mercy. There was a lot of David versus Goliath, especially when the men's from Javon versus, although Javon physically, height-wise, measures up well with Briggs, but Briggs is just a bigger, stronger dude. Javon gets the victory via pinfall. Then we have that breaking news of Lonnie Reed injured while training and is not medically cleared to compete. Shawn Michaels went to Twitter on X to announce that there was going to be a surprise entry for that women's speed matchup for Soruka. Out comes Jada Parker. I saw that. I was like, okay. I said, wow, Jada Parker might win something in her hometown. But then I go, wait. This is Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels is a little bit not like Vince, but there's a lot of Vince McMahon philosophy or fundamentals. You don't go over in your hometown. Listen, trust me. I flew to Slammiversary. Me and Chris went to New York. Mike didn't win in New York City in front of his family and friends. I said, ooh, I've been scorned. I said, you know what? Vince says you don't win on your birthday or you don't win on your hometown. Although if you're Leon Slater, he did win. He won big time on his birthday. So Ruka gets the pin, but because on the outside where Parker hits a hypnotic on the floor, Balash Leshin appears, causes the distraction, led to chaos. Zarya spearing Legend, allowing Ruka to recover, hits the Snow Snatcher, and gets her title defense against poor Jada Parker, who becomes a bridesmaid and never the bride. Her time will come. There's reports that she's being possibly called up. Huge mistake. I don't want to see Jada Parker called up yet. Not because she can't hang. I think she could get over. I just want to see Jada Parker develop a different finishing move. The hypnotic is a great move for that level. But when you get to SmackDown Raw, I don't think that move is a finisher to translate into championship or finish or victories. I need a finisher. I need her to develop a finisher, and then she's ready to go. That's just me. I think promo-wise, character-wise, her in-ring, I think she could hang on the main roster. Just a finisher to get us invested to, oh yeah, that's the one thing in my opinion that's holding back Jada Parker from actually becoming this mega star and becoming ready to go to the main roster. If you're not going to have her win NXT Women's Gold or Knockouts Gold, I think that's what's holding Jada, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Again, we'll move on. Dark State issues a fair warning to Joe Henry in the back in an interview to Kelly Kincaid, telling him either you're with us or you're not with us. I don't know what he means. If you're with us, Dark State or NXT. Joe Henry is going to play a big part in this. I think he's going to play the role, not like Stone Cold, but the decisive tipping of the balance. Is he Team TNA or Team NXT? I don't know if people are going to perceive it as a heel turn if Joe Henry goes NXT. I don't know. Maybe to TNA wrestlers, but to WWE, he might be a uber babyface. I don't know. Only time will tell going forward there. Let's go to the match here. Third match on the card was weaponized steel cage match. Now, this one I've seen a lot of people online complaining with Jordynne Grace and Blake Monroe. I thought the match, for what it was good. Brutal. I don't think, me personally, I hate the NXT steel cage. I like the steel cage concept, but that particular steel cage that they use for the NXT brand, I hate it. Being at the Performance Center and watching steel cage matches, I feels like that cage is it's dingy. It looks like it's going to break, but it's not. That is they would not put their young talent and be liable for something that's not going to work. But if you look how it's constructed, up close and personal with bolts across, and now you're like, ooh, it makes you cringe. It's not meant to do top rope spots. It's not meant to do any when the performers do the top ropes splash or superplex or whatever, I cringe because that cage doesn't look like it should hold any 250-pound plus muscle men doing some spectacular moves to the top, let alone women. So I was very worried when it came to that cage. That's just me. That's just my preference. But this was a brutal, violent encounter. You saw candlesticks. You saw trash cans. You even saw diamonds. A creative way of not showing us thumbtacks or Legos. I love that it was diamonds used as weapons, although rhinestones. We all know that. Blake Monroe pushes Grace's hand and attempts to cut her hair. That spot, when I saw Jordynne Grace getting her extensions cut in the middle of the ring there with the scissors, I said Jordynne Grace has to go over. No way she was going to agree to get her hair cut or extensions and then take the pinfall by Blake Monroe. Here's where I had a disconnection. In a steel cage matchup, there's a spot where there's a rope break. Don't remember which lady. There's a rope break, and I go, there is not supposed to be a rope break in a steel cage. It's supposed to beat the hell out of each other and get a pin and out. Submission, you're supposed to submit. You're not supposed to really. That's why you have all these weapons. You have to gather and grab a weapon to try to break a hold if you're in a submission. I didn't like the rope break spot. That's the one thing that, to me, I lost disconnect with. But it doesn't mean for you to go, for people that I've seen them online, just totally obliviate the match. Why? Because they're two women wrestling in a weaponized steel cage match. This is what the ladies had, a blood feud. They hated each other. They went out there and they beat the shit out of each other in the way they can with all the weapons. They use every weapon except for the bat. They use everything, every weapon. We saw a Boston Crab. We saw a spine buster on the chair. We saw an avalanche Samoan drop. I mean, that match was great. The match escalated when both women fought to the top of the cage, where I cringed. Monroe tried for an avalanche Canadian destroyer, but Grace countered it midair and delivered a devastating air raid crash right to the table. And she picked up the win. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It was just, you know what? It felt, could there be times that you felt that they held a little because they didn't want to make sure that they wanted to be uber safe in this cage match? I think so. Remember, this is the first time ever Jordynne Grace or Blake Monroe is introduced to their NXT steel cage. I just finished going over how I don't feel comfortable. And I don't think that's not a traditional steel cage that you see on the main roster companies from WWE or All Elite Wrestling. This is a different type of steel cage that the NXT uses. The ladies, wouldn't be surprised. Let me say that they felt uncomfortable with that. I don't think, not knowing the cage wouldn't surprise me. They'll never admit it. They'll never say it, but if you would ask them off the record, probably would say, I don't trust that cage. And that showed by the way they hesitated a little bit. It wasn't a bad match. It was a great match. It was a good match. Not great. Let me take my words back. It was a good match. Great would have been if they would have not had that foot break, but that's just nitpicking at this point. Then I'm nitpicking. You didn't get any blood. Is that why you guys didn't like it? I mean, does it really need blood? Everybody, they hit each other with all the weapons. People got put to the table. People got hit. I mean, I know one person on my chat how come there was no barbed wire? Why do you want barbed wire with these women? Barbed wire rips the flesh. All you need to do is, women don't need to wrestle and have their flesh ripped. They hardcore enough. That was hardcore enough. Scar tissues. Why? Why did Blake? Do you really want to see Blake Monroe with a gash or scar where take away from her appearance later down the road? Because she entertained a couple of geeks online because they wanted to see barbed wire. No offense. No, it didn't need it. It didn't need it. I thought it was a good match. It didn't need it personally. I just thought it was fine. We get an announcement from Maven Reviews that this past Tuesday, there's going to be a special called Invasion, a special with NXT versus TNA special on October 7th that we talked about. There are going to be two Survivor Series style matches, 5-on-5, one for the men, one for the women. Love it. We're getting close to Survivor Series, the traditional Survivor Series 5-on-5. I believe they're going to show the captains. They're going to make the teams on the 5 men representing TNA, 5 women representing TNA, the 5 men representing NXT, and the 5 women. We also, Lash Legend wants to be a captain. Immediately let us know that she wants to be a captain of that team, and she's going to war with NXT versus TNA. Oh boy, her and Jakara Jackson, Mara Sade, people are going to go crazy to see that. Hopefully that's something we see there. That will be lovely because we saw Lash Legend and Jada Parker brawling backstage, had to be broken up. Dark State and the Hardy Boys, winner take all title match. Now, I thought I heard that Ava said we're going to have a conclusion, title versus NXT World Champion versus TNA World Champion on that special event. I don't know if things changed now that we know that the title has changed hands with Ricky Saints winning it. I'll get to that in a minute. We'll find out. I saw there was a backstage with Laney Reed, visibly upset with her injuries by Kelly Kincaid. Lola Vase tries to give her some advice, but the young lady was very snotty, very confrontive, very dismissive. And Lola said, "Be watch yourself, or I will break that leg in no time." Kind of show a little animosity there, especially teasing for the end of what might have happened in their match. Let's go to the North American title, Ethan Page versus Turbine Heights. This match was a mat match. The match NXT gave us from a hardcore match. They gave us the excitement of the news of the invasion angle, some backstage promo, and then they went into a match that was full of graps to start off. The match began with some mat wrestling, some power exchange from Page, took out the control with a back body drop, repeated in the corner attack. You had Heights battle back and forth with some clothesline and running boot, an ankle lock, but Page has so much ring on cue, and he showed it. You saw how decisive, how cerebral Page was. Page continued counter every move Trevin Hunts gave them, took away the momentum, hitting a avalanche power slam, and finally the twisted grin to retain the North American title. Ethan Page showed you why he is a veteran of the wrestling business. He's 35. He's only 35 years old. Ethan Page totally, and again, doesn't mean that Trevin Heights didn't put on a good match. It's just you saw the difference in their wrestling styles and the expertise in Ethan Page. Gets the victory. Nothing to rag home about. This one could have been easy on a Tuesday night. I'm gonna be honest with you, and we would have been like, okay, not bad. It felt like an NXT Tuesday night match. No disrespect to the both gentlemen, they worked their ass off, but the crowd investment, especially when I mentioned you had such a high with all the NXT, TNA rumblings of invasion. Lola Vice, is there going to be, with Reed, is she going to be a member of Fatal Influence? There was a lot of excitement, and then you got to that, and it kind of took people into an emotional roller coaster. And then, again, it's not no disrespect. You guys worked your ass off. Good job, good match, but it just, the vibe was off. Of course, you get Hijo de Dr. Wagner appears, signaling that he wants an opportunity at that championship. He wants to become North American champion. Interesting. He is the current Latin American champion. So we might have champion versus champion, AAA, Latin American champion, North American champion. Who knows? For Ethan, we will find out. We get a video vignette from Mike Santana. Vow to bring the TNA World title home, hinting Frankie Kazarian will join him this Tuesday at the Performance Center at NXT. Also, Frankie Kazarian tweeted out. Throughout the night, there was the threads with tweets of all the talents saying they're might going to be there. Who's going to show? Again, we're getting TNA talent, this time heading towards the Performance Center. Now, we'll find out if Ava will up the security. Will she allow them in the building? Or will they find their way in the building? That's also a storyline that could be out there. Someone's letting them in the building. Who? Could be Joe Henry. Only time will tell. We get the women's NXT champion match. JC Jane with Fallon Henley. No Jasmine Nix. If you know Jasmine Nix, written off television, no longer part of the WWE. Her contract has expired. Refused to take the new contract that WWE offered her. Not enough financially, did not come to an agreement with money. So they just decided to shake hands and thank you for the opportunity, and they will move on their merry way. Very talented young lady for Jasmine Nix, but she wants to do something different. Wish her luck there. Let's go. This was a highly physical title match. We saw JC Jane target Vice back, relentless strikes, suplexes, hip attack, while Vice counters with explosive offense, including a back spinning kick, a cannonball off the apron, a guillotine choke, which I thought the JC Jane was finished, but Henley constantly kept interfering, nearly caused Vice, but the referee ejected her from ringside. It took the referee about like 4 different interferences from Fallon Henley to finally get her out. Down the stretch, both women traded big shots after big shots, near fall finishes. Vice hits the 305, but a mysterious hooded attacker grabbed her leg, pulled her out, struck her with a knee from behind while the referee's back was turned. Of course, you saw the family members so irate of Lola Vice, her father, her sisters, her mother at ringside. JC Jane seized the moment, landed the big rolling encore, and retained her women's championship. She went into hostile territory in the UBS Arena in Slammiversary, became TNA Knockouts champion. She took on a Stephanie Vicaire where no one gave her an opportunity, a chance, beat her. Now she defends, takes her NXT Women's Championship into hostile territory in the 305 area, in Fort Lauderdale, in South Florida, and defended it against the hometown favorite, Lola Vice, with the crowd behind her. JC Jane continues to staple her legacy as a top female athlete of 2025. You could say comeback wrestler of the year or breakout wrestler of the year in the female women's division. JC Jane continues to put more and more on her resume for those accolades at the end of the year. So keep your love for JC Jane. She might not be your cup of coffee, but she is mine because she continues to do different things to submit and solidify herself. Top woman currently right now in NXT and all across the board. Her year that she's having, you gotta put her name. You gotta put respect to her name when it comes to JC Jane. Great job there. Moose sends a warning to NXT, talking about promising nonstop anarchy and declaring that TNA will always be the superior brand. Then it was announced next week Jada Parker will face Lash Legend. Ava and Santino Marella reveals the teams for the Survivor Series match. I love it. And then we get to the main event, Oba Femi versus Ricky Saints. All right, this main event was highly intense battle from NXT for the richest prize. Oba Femi, oversized, overpowered Ricky Saints throughout the whole match. It's like, boy, is this good? And I said, you know what? If you want to, we just had a Brock Lesnar, John Cena, kind of a squash. You know what? Wouldn't be out of the question. Oba Femi does that to Ricky Saints here because he looks so prominent, especially when you have an invasion angle coming in. You want to make your champion, especially in the Oba Femi's caliber, to be unstoppable. Like, okay, you want to invade? I got this monster in Oba Femi. Good luck. I've got another monster in Jasper Troy. Good luck. You know, you want to bring your Moose. You want to bring your Cardonas. You want to bring your Knuckles. I've got an Oba Femi. I have a Jasper Troy. You know, those type of chess matchup. I thought, you know what? Then it wouldn't bother that Ricky Saints were off. Oba Femi manhandles Ricky Saints. All right. I'm okay with that. Backbreaker, chokeslam, but Saints refused to stay down. Saints rallied with some Samoan drops, some spears, sunset flip power bombs, near fall, back and forth. The war continued, but then Ricky Saints hits on numerous numbers of DDT tornadoes, different DDTs on the announce table. But Saints shocks the world by reversing another attempt and planting Oba Femi with a swinging DDT for his first championship in a shocking, awe and circumstances. Look, when you get hit with at least 4 to 5 DDTs landing on your head, regardless of who you are, people was like, I didn't like the finish. Listen, I kind of would have liked Oba Femi to win, but then when you look at the psychology of the match, of all the different DDTs and all the different things he got planted on, it kind of makes sense for Oba Femi to lose his title on that route. Now, is there a rematch? There should be a rematch. Could Oba Femi win it? You never know when it comes to I seen Trick Williams win the North American title, No Mercy, and the next following Tuesday, drop it. NXT is not afraid of the moment champion at that moment, and the following week, the champion gets his title back. Wouldn't be surprised if Oba Femi recently gets his title back again in a squash fashion against Ricky Saints. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, again, for those reasons. You need your obstacle, you need your monster, your behemoth in Oba Femi to feel important, to get him to feel feared by the TNA roster. And that's how you do it, getting his title back, being this unstoppable force. I don't know how psychologically how good you lost to a Tony D'Angelo who's not even on television, and now you lost to a Ricky Saints, undersized. Everyone loves a David and Goliath match. I agree with you. It's been done since the beginning of time. And when done correctly, like they did for No Mercy, it chef kissed. But I gotta question it. Couldn't we held this off for Halloween Havoc for Ricky Saints to become your world champion and kept Obafemi your world champion, but going into Invasion to feel like this monster obstacle course? That's just my question. That's all I have to say on that. There again, I'm not against Ricky Saints becoming your world champion, especially he just had a North American title run, and he only's been with the company for a short time. Unless if everyone's like, call Obafemi up. Yeah, you're gonna call Obafemi up after this Invasion feud, after this what's going on with Invasion. You could have Obafemi. You need Obafemi to be representing NXT against TNA because he shows a threat. So that's just me. I can't wait to see how Invasion plays out. Don't forget to watch along with us Monday Night Raw on our playback, Sports Jedi Network, Kill the Ring playback. We got some interviews being lined up in the week. We got some good interviews. Check it out. You'll see all our different interviews in the past. Please check it out. We have a Ring of Honor independent wrestler, Janai Kai. We interviewed her back in a couple months ago. Check that interview out. We recently had a birthday, so I want to wish her a happy birthday as well. Interviews from President Carlos Silva, TNA's President Carlos Silva, Frankie Kazarian, Nick Nemeth, Mike Santana, Francino Morella, and many more. So please check it out. So many independent wrestlers like the Uptown Boys, one half of the Uptown Boys, both Uptown Boys, on our channel, as well as Nair Robles, Johan Nora. Want to salute them from Espiritu Dojo. We have Lady Shadow, Destructive Nancy, of course, Angie Savage, who's just killing the independent scene on the West Coast. Wanted to shout her out. Don't forget, Respect the Craft. Escape has a card coming up in November. Check them out at the Mecca. Respect the Craft. You can check that out there on our Instagram. So yes, just like that. Respect the Craft. Respect the Craft podcast. They got tickets on sale there. Don't check it out. Ray Sanchez. Wanted to shout him out. And of course, our boy PGH Chris, hope you're doing well. Hope we get you back on This Week in Wrestling. Miss having the conversation back and forth. Hear your thoughts. Quickly, let me wrap this up with All Elite Wrestling. I said, you don't cover All Elite Wrestling. What happened to AEW? Look, AEW, their follow-up to their. Let me. Somebody started talking. All Elite Wrestling had their Fallout show. I think All Out was a very entertaining product, very good show, but they keep falling into a trap. The follow up to their pay-per-views, for some reason, to the fan base, under delivers. Where here's where I could give. I didn't watch it, so I'm not going to get into it or fake the funk. I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I see some of the results, I have to ask this question: your world champion Hangman Page, he's wrestling Lee Moriarty. I heard the match was very good. There was no build. There was no why. They just had a match because he was from Pittsburgh. But meanwhile, you have MJF, who is the best wrestler in that company, who is the face of the company, who everyone, the only mega superstar that translate Hollywood and beyond for All Elite Wrestling. He has to announce a week ahead to cash in his contract for a world title, but Lee Moriarty gets a title with no week build, no 1 week notice, just because the night of or the week of he's going to get, because there wasn't no mention on the pay-per-view, I believe, right, that Lee Moriarty was going to wrestle Hangman when that pay-per-view concluded. They just announced it 24 hours, maybe or that day of. Make it make sense. That's all I've got to say, All Elite Wrestling. Make it make sense. Because those are the type of things that your fan base or the critics point fingers at. And is it fair? Not really. It's not. It's not fair. Because it's not fair for the men and women who go out there to perform, who bust their ass, take those flights, get to the arena, get to the company, hoping to get tapped on the shoulder. Hey, you're on tonight. You got 15 minutes. We got a segment for you for 10. And those that don't, because they don't know where creative is going, where the booker wants to do, what storyline, what They just go and execute. I got to give them a lot of credit for what they have last 6 years, because every time those men and women go out there, they do their best to entertain and perform with the movesets. The in-ring continues to deliver. Boy, but I wish the creative and the support from the back will be up to that level of the talent that they have. Gates of Agony. I don't know what's going on with you put them against the World Championship already. Why? Gates of Agony. I know people say they don't care. Bishop Khan and Tooliola. I do. I've said this here. You put that tag team in TNA wrestling, they'll be a force in their tag team division. This is funny because what other people think as jobbers or weak, other companies might see them as money superstar. Case in point, Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, Tony Storm. You could see that from both companies when they go to another Swerve Strickland. Man, I hope that I don't know if the Gates of Agony could overcome this thing here where you have Jurassic Express return. Great moment. They're not even on your follow-up show for a promo or something to get the crowd in Pittsburgh going. That's an issue. Again, that's an issue. You want to make sure you want to keep the momentum cooking. And I've heard this Mark Briscoe. Why is he in a six-man congregation? Why? Mark Briscoe, if anything, and I don't follow the product, and I'm just trying to go by some cliff notes and notes. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Maybe I'm the worst person to be opinionating on this. Mark Briscoe should have been the next in line to have a match with your world champion Hangman Page that Wednesday instead of Lee Moriarty. Maybe you would have got, and then you could have done some type of wonky finish or something that they like to do with the run-ins of the Death Riders or whatever the case is, and chaos and anarchy and all that crap. Maybe that's that's something they should have went, because you know what? Simple. You saved my life from getting destroyed by MJF in the back, right? There wasn't there a thing where the Gates of Agony with Ricochet was gonna, and that's where MJF Hangman had to say no for the contract, some nonsense with the storyline wise. Why couldn't they tie that in when Mark Briscoe, and you could have had, instead of the Gates of Agony losing to Brodito, interfere and continue that Hangman feud with MJF. It's those things, those little attentions to details. This is why the company gets the slings and arrows at time. Not let alone Kenny Omega, who's the EVP of the company, getting you into it with Gail Kim in being the disrespectful. Why? First and foremost, if there's an issue between Gail Kim and Kenny Omega, it should never have been public in tweet battles back and forth. That's easily, especially those two people who are in the wrestling business. I'm pretty sure they have each other's phone numbers. I'm pretty sure they have each other's they'll answer each other's DMs quicker. A simple phone call, FaceTime with one another could have cleared that up instead of going a back and forth and feeding into negativity, tribalism throughout the wrestling community. That and the disrespect that Gail Kim received from the internet, from Twitter, that was disgusting. She should have not gotten that heat, regardless if you don't disagree. Just, you know what's the greatest button in X? The mute button. Simple. The mute button is the most greatest button there is on the X. If you don't care about hearing and seeing people's posts, hit the mute button. Hit the mute button. You don't have to block everyone. You just gotta mute them so you don't hear that. You don't want to hear that stuff. But I'm sure if you're Kenny Omega, reach out to her, settle it like adults. First and foremost, I know you have your illness with the dermatitis. I can't even say it. You're an EVP to the company. They had a show in Toronto, in Canada. All I know, you're playing video. You're in a video game convention. Tells you a lot about the company. If you're an EVP You have to be you have to be there. Yeah, oh, he's doing treatment in Japan. That's why he went. Okay. But then don't mention about the video game conference that you're at. That's just me, but it is what it is. The company doesn't need any more negative publicity. They need a lot of positive publicity. They need people to tune in. They need people to watch the product, buy the tickets. They buy the pay-per-views. They go to the pay-per-view events. But when it comes to their weekly television, I don't know why they're losing translation when it comes to the tickets, and the viewership continues to decline. Why? Where everyone gets excited for their pay-per-views. Why? It's not like they're outpricing their fans. Look, they're coming to Lakeland for Collision on October 2nd. Tickets, and I live in Florida. I live in Orlando. Tickets are reasonable, respectable. $32 to go to Collision. Put it this way, and you're going to get a good show in Collision. Full Sail was $52, and that place got sold out immediately. And that card was whatever. I went the following Tuesday to the Performance Center, and I paid nothing. And I had a better show going to the Performance Center than Full Sail. My point is, Collision is not costing you a lot of money. $32 per ticket. If you're an AEW fan, a sicko, or a wrestling fan that wants to give an opportunity, $32 is not a bad investment. Go check out AEW. At least go for the experience. Go one time. If it's not your cup of coffee, it's not your cup of coffee. You know what? I gave it a shot. I went there live. Not for me. You don't have to say, oh, it was just the worst thing. You don't have to be negative. Just say it wasn't for me. Simple. Be an adult here in 2025. That's just not my style, not my cup of coffee. Plain and simple. You don't have to ridicule it or crap on it and say, oh, this is the worst. Just give it a chance. If you don't give it a shot, you'll never know. And look, this is coming from a person who's not a fan, that's not my cup of coffee, but I'll give it a shot. Collision, October 2nd. I'll give it let's see. They have a chance here to convince me, make me an AEW viewer going forward. We'll find out there. The whole thing with the Beth Phoenix stuff, I know people was like, make it make sense with the Stokely hacked away. With Willow coming out, I know people were upset that she came out smiling and happy to the crowd. She should have come out with a beeline, upset because what happened to Beth Phoenix. Look, she also in the moment, the crowd is happy to see Willow. That cheered her up and made her smile. Stop nitpicking. Stop nitpicking when it comes to that. She just came out. She still got her point across and slapped Stokely half the way for hitting her mentor, Beth Phoenix. That's just nitpicking when I hear that from the people breaking it down. Look, if it wasn't your cup of coffee, it wasn't your cup of coffee. The Kyle Fletcher stuff, he's off to Collision. He goes, taking on, now Hologram is injured, supposedly. Again, storyline. Chris is the one that does the AEW breakdown because he is the sicko fan to watch this. Personally, let's see what happens. They have their 6-year anniversary coming up this Wednesday. I think they're going to pop a nice number. They'll probably get 700,000 people to watch. They'll get a nice bump in their ratings. People will watch. People will see. But it's up to the owner to put on a hell of a 6-year anniversary show for that company. Look, maybe the people were making a big deal. No Dr. Britt Baker on Pittsburgh last week. Maybe she shows up for the 6-year anniversary. I personally think if she shows up for the 6-year anniversary, it's bigger than Pittsburgh. Personally, because she was the first signing for All Elite Wrestling, and she's there at the anniversary for regardless of the situation. I think it would have looked great. Personally, it is what it is. But this is my end of the show. We thank you guys. We appreciate everyone. Thank you again. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and all prayers for Ash by Elegance as well as Rebel from AEW. Hope you feel better. And thank you guys. Hit that like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.